It's 11:30 at night. Rain lashes against the windows of Miami International Airport. Inside, most workers have gone home. But one man stays behind, mop in hand, pushing it slowly across the polished floors. His name is Louis Herrera, a janitor most people barely notice. To them, he's invisible. But tonight, invisibility is his greatest weapon. What no one knows, what no one suspects, is that Luis is about to become the center of one of the boldest and strangest crimes in American history. A crime that would leave investigators baffled and the public asking, how could a man no one saw coming pull off something so extraordinary and then vanish without a trace? But before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. This is where we uncover the darkest, most gripping unsolved mysteries in American crime. Leave your theories in the comments, because in this case, your guess may be as good as the FBI's. Now, let's step into the quiet, shadowed world of Luis Herrera. Luis Herrera was 42 years old, a Cuban immigrant who had lived in Miami for over a decade. On paper, he was unremarkable, a janitor with a modest paycheck, a man scraping by in one of America's busiest cities. His co-workers described him as quiet, polite, and always on time. But behind closed doors, life was far from simple. He lived in a cramped apartment, shared with a cousin who was constantly in trouble with the law. Luis had mounting medical bills for his mother back in Havana, and he was drowning in debt. Every night, while others rushed home, Luis stayed late. He had the kind of job that made him invisible, cleaning empty terminals, sanitizing offices, mopping around guards who never looked twice at him. But invisibility came with an advantage. Luis began to notice things others didn't. The security lapses, the guards who slept on the job, the money transports that moved through the airport at strange hours. For 3 years, Luis took notes in silence. He mapped the routines. He watched armored trucks pull up and unload millions in cash destined for banks. He memorized the guards' patterns, when they chatted, when they looked away, when they stepped out for a smoke. To everyone else, he was just the janitor. To himself, he was becoming something else, a man with knowledge worth millions. Luis wasn't born a criminal. He was raised Catholic, with a strong sense of morality. But desperation changes people. Every night, as he scrubbed floors, he thought about the men in suits who passed him by, the cash-filled bags rolling past him into secure vaults, the kind of wealth he could never touch. He was tired of being invisible, tired of being poor. The temptation gnawed at him, until one night, as he stood outside the airport loading dock, smoking a cigarette in the rain, he made a decision. He wasn't just going to watch anymore. He was going to take what no one thought he could, and he was going to disappear before anyone realized he was gone. Luis didn't rush. He couldn't afford to. For months, he rehearsed the plan in his mind. He knew the exact time the armored truck arrived, 11:15 p.m. every Thursday. He knew the guards took a smoke break at 11:25, and he knew the vault was left unguarded for exactly 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That was all he would have. He found a way to acquire a duplicate key to the storage room. No one even questioned him when he borrowed it. After all, who suspects a janitor? He started small, testing the waters, leaving doors unlocked just to see if anyone noticed. They didn't. He noted which cameras were functional and which were dummies. Half of them hadn't worked in years. And slowly, the pieces began to align. The only thing missing was courage. It was Thursday night, November 12th. The storm outside rattled the glass walls of the airport. Thunder echoed through the empty halls. Luis clocked in as usual, wearing his blue janitor's uniform, pushing his mop bucket. No one paid him any mind. At 11:20, the armored truck arrived. He heard the screech of brakes, the clinking of chains as the guards rolled heavy duffel bags inside. He kept his head down, heart racing. At 11:25, as predicted, the guards stepped outside for a smoke. Luis took a deep breath. He walked, calm, steady, toward the vault. His duplicate key slid in perfectly. The door opened with a low click. Inside were 4 duffel bags, heavy, overflowing with cash. His hands trembled as he lifted the first bag. It was heavier than he expected, like holding the weight of his entire life. He dragged it to the cleaning cart, slid it beneath trash bags, and covered it with rags. One by one, he moved them. His pulse hammered in his ears. Every second felt like a lifetime. 6 minutes passed. He was almost clear. Then, footsteps. Luis froze. The vault door creaked open. A figure stepped inside. Not a guard, not a coworker, someone he had never seen before. The stranger's eyes met Louis's. And in that moment, everything changed. Who was this man? And what did he want? The answer would lead to one of the strangest twists in American crime history. But just as he loaded the final bag into his cart, the vault door creaked open. And standing there was not a guard, not a coworker, but a stranger. Who was this man? And why was he there? Louis's heart stopped. The man was tall, mid-40s, wearing a dark overcoat. Not an airport employee, not a guard, not anyone Louis had ever seen. For a moment, neither moved. Then, the stranger smiled. "Relax," he whispered. "I'm not here to stop you." Louis's blood ran cold. The man stepped forward slowly, his shoes clicking against the concrete floor. "I've been watching you. For months. You think you're invisible. But you're not invisible to me." Louis stammered, unable to respond. The stranger knelt beside the cart, lifted the edge of a rag, and saw the duffel bags stuffed with cash. He nodded approvingly. "Impressive, but you're going to need help. Lucky for you, I know exactly how you can get this money out alive." Louis was frozen between fear and suspicion. Who was this man? An undercover cop? A criminal? The stranger introduced himself only as Mr. Alvarez. He claimed to have inside knowledge of the airport, the cash transports, and even the guards' blind spots. "Do you really think you were the only one watching?" Alvarez said, his voice calm, steady. "You're good, careful, patient. But without me, you'll be caught before you even leave the parking lot." Louis didn't trust him. But Alvarez had a point. The 4 heavy bags were nearly impossible to move alone. And Alvarez seemed to know everything. Louis hesitated, then nodded. And in that moment, a partnership was born. One that would take the crime to a level Louis never imagined. With Alvarez's help, the bags were loaded into a service elevator. Together, they pushed the cart down dim hallways, avoiding cameras with practiced precision. Louis realized Alvarez knew the airport as well as he did. Maybe better. At 11:45 p.m., they wheeled the cart through a side exit near the loading dock. Rain poured down, drowning out the sound of their footsteps. Waiting outside was a black van. Not Louis's. Alvarez's. "Get in," Alvarez ordered. Louis hesitated. The plan was his. The money was his. But now, he was no longer in control. Still, he climbed in. The van pulled away, vanishing into the Miami night. As the van sped through back streets, Louis's thoughts spiraled. Who was Alvarez really? Why had he appeared tonight? The very night Louis put his plan into motion. Was it luck? Fate? Or had Alvarez orchestrated everything from the shadows? Alvarez drove in silence, the cash bags between them like ticking bombs. Finally, he spoke. "You should thank me. Without me, you'd be in handcuffs by now. But don't think this is your money. This is our money now." Louis felt anger rise in his chest. But he said nothing. Not yet. In that moment, he realized something chilling. He wasn't just a thief anymore. He was trapped in a game with a man far more dangerous than himself. By morning, the heist was discovered. The vault was empty. The guards were humiliated. News exploded across Miami. Millions stolen from airport and brazen inside job. The FBI stepped in immediately. Agent Carmen Reyes, a rising investigator with a reputation for persistence, was assigned to the case. She quickly pieced together the basics. No forced entry, no broken locks. This was an inside job. And if it was inside, then someone still at the airport knew exactly how it was done. Louis's face wasn't on their radar. Yet. But Alvarez? No one even knew he existed. By nightfall, Louis sat in a shabby motel room, the cash stacked on the bed. Alvarez leaned against the wall, smoking, eyes never leaving him. "We're partners now," Alvarez said. "But remember, partners can be replaced." Louis stared at him, realizing he might have just traded one prison for another. Meanwhile, across town, Agent Reyes received her first anonymous tip. A tip that would lead her straight to someone very close to Louis. Someone ready to betray him. Meanwhile, FBI agent Carmen Reyes picked up the case. And on her first night, she received a tip, one that pointed her straight towards someone close to Louis. Louis and Alvarez spent the first 24 hours after the heist holed up in a rundown Miami motel. The cash was stacked in duffel bags across the bed. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and tension. Louis couldn't shake the thought. Alvarez had planned this. He hadn't stumbled into the vault. He had been waiting for him. Every time Luis looked at the money, Alvarez's shadow loomed over it. Finally, Luis spoke. We need to move the cash. Split it. Go our separate ways. Alvarez laughed coldly. Split it? You'd be in prison by morning without me. Don't fool yourself. You're not in charge here. I am. The words cut deep. Luis realized he was no longer a mastermind. He was a pawn. Across town, Agent Carmen Reyes was assembling her task force. The FBI had traced the timeline. The armored truck arrived on schedule. No forced entry. Cameras conveniently offline. A perfect inside job. But Reyes was sharp. She knew perfect crimes didn't exist. That night, her phone buzzed. An anonymous caller, voice disguised. The message was simple. Check the janitors. One of them knows more than he should. The tip was vague, but it was enough. Within hours, Reyes had names, schedules, and access records. And one name stood out. Louis Herrera. The janitor who always worked the night shift. The janitor no one noticed. Reyes didn't have proof yet, but she had a hunch. And hunches, in her line of work, often led to arrests. Back at the motel, Luis's paranoia grew. Every knock at the door made him flinch. Every car passing outside made his heart race. Worse, Alvarez seemed too calm, too prepared. Luis began to wonder. Was Alvarez the one who tipped off the FBI? Had he set Luis up as the fall guy while planning to vanish with the cash? That night, Luis snuck into the bathroom with his burner phone. Hands trembling, he dialed his cousin Diego, the only family he trusted. Listen, Luis whispered. If anything happens to me, you need to disappear. Don't trust anyone. Not the cops. Not anyone. But what Luis didn't know was that Diego had already been contacted by Agent Reyes. Diego Herrera was no saint. Small-time hustler, always on the edge of trouble. When Agent Reyes showed up with photos of the airport vault and asked what he knew, Diego panicked. Reyes didn't threaten him. She didn't need to. She simply offered a deal. Help us find your cousin. Tell us where he is. And you walk away clean. Diego hesitated. He loved Luis. Luis had raised him, protected him. But money, freedom, self-preservation? Diego's loyalty cracked. And with one phone call, he gave Agent Reyes the lead she needed. The motel. By midnight, Reyes and her team were en route. Quiet. No sirens. No lights. Inside the motel, Luis felt the walls closing in. He paced, staring at the rain streaking down the window. Something's wrong, he muttered. Alvarez smirked. You're finally starting to see the truth. The question is, do you think fast enough to survive it? Luis didn't know what Alvarez meant. Not yet, but he was about to find out. Red and blue lights flickered in the distance, faint but growing. Luis froze. His worst fear was coming true. They're here, Alvarez whispered, almost amused. Luis grabbed one of the duffel bags, panic taking over. We have to run. But Alvarez didn't move. He simply lit another cigarette, exhaled slowly, and said, You still don't get it, do you? I brought them here. Luis's blood turned to ice. 11:58 p.m. FBI vans screeched to a halt outside the rundown motel. Agents in tactical gear fanned out silently, weapons raised. Inside, Luis pressed his back to the wall, duffel bag in hand. His pulse thundered in his ears. We need to run, he hissed. But Alvarez? He just smiled, flicking ash onto the floor. Run where? You think this is about money? Luis, you have no idea what game you're in. Before Luis could respond, the door exploded inward. Flashbang. Shouts. Armed agents flooding the room. Luis dropped to the floor, covering his head. Alvarez didn't move. Didn't flinch. He raised his hands slowly, calm as stone. Luis crawled toward the bathroom as agents swarmed the room. One duffel bag spilled open, bundles of cash scattering across the floor. A boot slammed down inches from his hand. Luis lashed out, knocking the agent off balance, and bolted through the bathroom window. Glass shattered. Rain pounded his face as he tumbled into the alley outside. Shouts erupted behind him. Suspect fleeing. Luis ran, lungs burning, clutching a smaller bag stuffed with money. Behind him, gunfire cracked, warning shots into the air. But no one followed. Why? Because inside the motel, Alvarez was still sitting calmly, letting himself be arrested. Back in the motel, Agent Carmen Reyes cuffed Alvarez herself. Luis Herrera, you're under arrest, she began. But Alvarez smirked. Luis? No, Agent Reyes. You've got the wrong man. He leaned closer, his voice low. But if it's Luis you want, I can give him to you. Reyes froze. Alvarez wasn't denying involvement. He was offering cooperation. Why? As agents loaded him into the van, Alvarez whispered one more thing to her. Tell me, agent, how badly do you want the janitor? Meanwhile, Luis stumbled through the rain-soaked streets of Miami, his mind unraveling. Every shadow looked like an agent. Every car headlight looked like a trap. He ducked into an abandoned warehouse near the docks, chest heaving. He dumped the duffel bag on the floor, countless stacks of bills spilling out. It should have felt like victory, freedom, but all Luis felt was dread, because Alvarez was still alive, still in play, and somehow Luis knew. Alvarez wanted him to run. Back at FBI headquarters, Agent Reyes studied Alvarez through the interrogation glass. Most suspects begged for deals. Alvarez. He acted like he owned the room. Why turn yourself in? She asked. Alvarez smiled. Turn myself in? No. I turned him out. I freed him. Now he's where he belongs. Hunted. Alone. Desperate. Reyes leaned in. So what's your angle? Alvarez's eyes darkened. Catch him if you can. But know this, Luis isn't the criminal you should fear. He's just the bait. Midnight bled into dawn. Luis crouched in the warehouse, gripping the stolen cash, when he heard footsteps echoing across the empty floor. He froze. A shadow stretched across the wall. Luis, a voice called softly. You can't run forever. But it wasn't Agent Reyes. It wasn't Alvarez. It was someone else. Someone Luis thought he would never see again. Luis. The figure stepped into the faint light of a broken window. It was Mariana Cruz, Luis's sister. He hadn't seen her in years. Not since the night she disappeared, caught in the orbit of Miami's cartels. Her voice was sharp, almost trembling. You shouldn't have taken the money, Luis. You don't understand what it belongs to. Luis staggered back, stunned. You're alive? Where the hell have you been? Mariana's eyes darted to the duffel bags at his feet. That money doesn't free you. It chains you. And Alvarez, he knows exactly where you'll run. Mariana revealed fragments of her hidden life. She had vanished not to escape, but to survive. Years ago, she had been forced into working for a cartel front, one tied directly to Alvarez. He wasn't just a middleman. He was a strategist. He doesn't just smuggle, she whispered. He places people like pieces on a board. And you, Luis, you were one of them. Luis felt the floor drop beneath him. All this time, he thought he was making choices. But Alvarez had been pulling strings from the beginning. Meanwhile, inside FBI headquarters, Agent Reyes pored over Alvarez's files. No matter how deep she dug, Alvarez's connections were too clean. Front companies, fake passports, shell identities. Every time she traced him, the trail bent back to someone else. Finally, a junior analyst spoke up. What if Alvarez isn't his real name? Reyes froze, because buried in old case files, decades old, she found something chilling. Alvarez's face in a mugshot, under a completely different identity. Whoever Alvarez really was, he had been playing this game far longer than anyone realized. Back in the warehouse, Mariana pressed Luis for a choice. Leave the money. Run with me. It's the only way you'll survive. But Luis couldn't let go. The cash wasn't just money. It was proof that he had taken something back from Alvarez. If I walk away now, he said, then he wins. Mariana's face darkened. Then you don't understand. Alvarez doesn't win. He always wins. Before Luis could answer, the sound of tires screeched outside the warehouse. Headlights cut through the broken windows. Dozens of shadows moved across the floor. Gunmen stormed the building. Not FBI. Not police. Cartel soldiers. Luis and Mariana ducked behind steel crates as bullets shredded the walls. Sparks lit the darkness. Luis clutched the bag, knuckles white. Mariana pulled a pistol from her coat and hissed. This isn't random. They knew exactly where to find you. Luis's stomach sank. Someone had given him up. Again. The gunfire stopped. Silence pressed in. Then, from the shadows of the warehouse doorway, a tall figure stepped inside. Not an agent. Not a cartel soldier. It was Alvarez. Uncuffed. Smiling. Did you really think I'd let them keep me? He said. Luis's chest tightened. He realized the truth. Alvarez hadn't been captured. He had engineered his arrest. And now, he was standing right in front of them. Luis froze. Alvarez stepped forward, unhurried, as if the gunmen weren't even there. Drop the weapons, he ordered. The soldiers obeyed instantly. Mariana raised her pistol, hand trembling. How are you here? They arrested you. Alvarez chuckled. My dear, I wanted them to. The FBI was never hunting me. They were following breadcrumbs I left behind. And Luis here. He turned to Luis with a piercing stare. Luis was the bait. Alvarez paced the dusty floor, his voice calm, like a teacher addressing students. Do you think it was chance you were hired at that airport, Luis? Chance you discovered the shipments? No. I placed you there. Invisible. Forgettable. Perfect. Every move you've made, the cash you stole, the motels, even this warehouse. I mapped it years ago. Luis's chest tightened. His entire life felt like a trap, every choice nothing but illusion. Why me, he whispered. Alvarez's smile widened. Because you're expendable. But your sister, she's not. Luis turned to Mariana. Her face was pale, eyes burning with shame. What is he talking about? Mariana hesitated. Then, through clenched teeth, he's lying. But Alvarez shook his head. Tell him, Mariana. Tell him how you've been working for me all along. Feeding me information. Protecting him. Yes, but keeping him in place, exactly where I wanted him. Luis felt the floor tilt beneath him. His sister, his only family. Had she been Alvarez's pawn too? Tears welled in her eyes. I tried to save you, Luis. You don't understand. He would have killed you years ago if I hadn't played along. Meanwhile, Agent Reyes sat in an unmarked surveillance van, eyes fixed on grainy warehouse footage. He's there, she whispered. Alvarez, alive, free, and speaking openly. But something was wrong. Reyes leaned closer. Alvarez wasn't panicked. He wasn't hiding. He was performing. And then it clicked. Alvarez knew they were watching. He wanted them to see. Back inside, Alvarez stepped closer, his eyes locked on Luis. You wanted freedom, didn't you? Money, power, escape. But freedom doesn't exist. There's only survival. And I'm offering you a place at my side. Luis shook his head. I'd rather die than work for you. Alvarez leaned in, voice soft but venomous. Oh, Luis. Everyone works for me, even when they think they don't. The soldiers raised their guns again. Mariana whispered desperately. Don't do it, Luis. Don't give him what he wants. Alvarez extended his hand, calm, patient. Choose. Stand with me, or watch your sister fall. Luis's heart pounded. His hands trembled over the duffel bag. On one side, the sister who had betrayed and protected him all at once. On the other, the man who had orchestrated his entire life. Luis's breath caught. He slowly extended his hand toward Alvarez. Mariana's eyes widened in horror. And just as their hands nearly touched, gunfire erupted outside the warehouse. The walls shook. Floodlights cut through the windows. The FBI had arrived. But Alvarez didn't flinch. He only smiled, as if this too was part of his design. Right on time, he whispered. Floodlights swept across the cracked windows. FBI agents shouted commands through megaphones. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Drop your weapons. Inside, tension froze the air. The cartel soldiers glanced nervously at Alvarez. But he raised one hand, calm, commanding. Stand down, he said. And just like that, they lowered their rifles. Luis whispered to Mariana. This is it. They've got him. But Alvarez's smile never faltered. No, Luis. They've got you. A thunderous boom shattered the silence. A hidden charge detonated near the rear of the warehouse, blowing open a steel wall. Smoke poured in, choking the air. FBI agents rushed the front. Cartel soldiers opened fire in chaos. Luis grabbed Mariana's arm, dragging her behind crates as bullets screamed past. Through the haze, he saw Alvarez walking calmly toward the blown-out wall, as if the battlefield were nothing more than a stage. He planned this, Luis gasped. He planned all of this. In the chaos, Mariana shoved a pistol into Luis's hand. You want to end this? Then end it now, she shouted over the gunfire. Luis aimed through the smoke. Alvarez's silhouette drifted toward the exit, untouchable. His finger trembled on the trigger. But he hesitated. This wasn't just a man. This was a ghost, a mastermind who had stolen years from him, who had turned his entire life into a cruel illusion. Luis froze. Mariana ripped the gun from his hand and fired. The bullet grazed Alvarez's shoulder. He staggered, but only for a second. Then he turned back, smiling at them both. You still don't understand, he said softly. You were never meant to kill me. Outside, Agent Reyes stormed through the smoke, firing commands. Secure the north side. Don't let him out. She spotted Luis and Mariana crawling toward cover. But when she caught sight of Alvarez, her blood ran cold. Not because he was escaping, but because he wasn't running at all. He was walking straight toward her, hands raised, as if surrendering. Put him in cuffs, she screamed. 2 agents slammed Alvarez to the ground. It seemed, for the first time, the ghost had been caught. Hours later, the warehouse was cleared. Dozens arrested. Millions in cash seized. Luis sat in an interrogation room, exhausted, haunted. Mariana sat across from him, eyes swollen with guilt. And in another room, Alvarez sat in silence, calm, waiting. Reyes paced outside the glass. We finally got him, she whispered. But the analyst beside her frowned at the files on the desk. No, he said. We don't. Because the fingerprints on Alvarez didn't match. Not just one identity. Not 2. But 6. 6 lives. 6 names. 6 ghosts. Whoever they had in custody, he wasn't Alvarez. He was someone else. In the dead of night, a convoy transported the man in cuffs to federal lockup. Inside the armored vehicle, he sat perfectly still. And then, as if speaking to no one, he whispered, "Checkmate." Moments later, the convoy vanished from the GPS. Vanished without a trace. Luis and Mariana would never see him again. And to this day, the FBI has no idea who Alvarez really was, or where he went. Some say he disappeared overseas. Others believe he still moves among us, invisible, pulling strings. One thing is certain, the final move was never theirs. It was his.